y'all, I am Hope here at Crafty Hope, and welcome. This is my February video for this little series I'm calling Finding the Words, in which I am pulling out, I've got this little tin full of sentiments, and I'm pulling out several different words. This one says make the world go away. This next one says it turns out I'm very good at it. And then the third one I'm going to pull out says, remember to breathe. And I'm going to make a choice between the three of those and use that as inspiration to guide me through an art journal page. It's just a different take on how to get prompted in my art journal rather than, using some external prompt source or, pulling material lists or, more more concrete things, I suppose. So as you saw, I picked out Remember to Breathe, which doesn't, if you see my last video, there were a lot of little words in there that gave me like something to go on, go watch it. I'm going to link it up here in the right and down in the description box if you haven't seen it. So I'm going to try to do this monthly because it's a good way for me to kind of get inspired in a different way and get started in a different way in my art journals. So I am continuing to work in this art journal that I made some months ago, and as I usually do, I start with some collage. I'm using a fluid matte medium, and I've got several different book pages. I think some dictionary page, and then some other kind of, some other kind of book page that I've altered with several things. It looks like maybe an eco print, and then some paint on top. I did some mark making on top of it. So I'm not gonna I don't think I'm going to overwork this much because really I just wanted to cover up the page that was underneath. It was a little slick for my taste. I did put it in the book, but really just as a base here. Here's the other one. I'm trying to decide. A lot of times when I work in my journal, especially with papers I've torn down, if there are straight edges on the paper, I'm going to try to put it along the straight edges of the edges of my page. That way I'm not wasting a lot of paper by tearing it down, because I do prefer those torn edges like most of us mixed media artists do, but as this handwritten letter here, the top ledge and the right side of it fit perfectly in this bottom right corner. So it's just kind of how I work. If there's a straight edge, I'm going to try to put it up against another straight edge in my pages So once I get that kind of covered, I'm flipping through this folder I've got off to the side. It's labeled collage bits. So it's just different papers that I throw in there from time to time. I don't know how many different containers I have in my craft room of different collage bits, like scrap papers and things like that. And for some reason today, this is the one I'm working out of. So I cut down, that was, I think it's an eye that I cut out of it was a print, something I printed up. I cut it out and went ahead and stuck it down in this this folder is some of this drywall joint tape with the holes in it. It's super fun. It is adhesive back, so you just a sticker peel off the back and stick it down. I decided to just go for this one piece, and then flipping through my folder there, I saw I had this thing of butterflies and moths, I think. And so I'm going to tear it down a bit. I'd use some of it in something else, another page perhaps. I don't remember. I ought to. But I tore this down. Wasn't sure if this was going to be the focal or something else. So I went ahead and inked up the edges with some distress ink and walnut stain on this ink blender, and then I crumpled the whole thing. I wanted it to feel definitely a little more aged and old, so I also darkened up some of those crumples, just kind of went over it with that ink blender. And I moved it around a little bit, found, some places weren't stuck down. I'm a stickler for that, because if I don't get it glued down, I'm liable to pick at it. I don't want to do that. So I, as you saw, moved that around a little bit and decided that kind of here, I don't even remember why I decided that there would be nice. I think I had the inkling that I wanted to add maybe some kind of fabric or lace or something over on the right side. So I didn't want to put what might possibly be a focal on that right side on that edge, but yeah. So again, I just used fluid medium to get most of that stuck down with the exception of that self-adhesive thing. I flattened it all out a bit, and I'm looking at that sentiment, and it is something I'm sure I just printed out. I don't even know where it came from, but I cut it down and decided that the stark whiteness of that printer paper was not going to go really well with all of the other aged papers that are kind of on this page. So I am also putting Distress Ink Walnut Stain all over it just to kind of make it better. So I have, this is some Chalky, it's a DecoArt's Chalky Gesso. I think it's like light green or something. Nina Fickett sent it to me. She had it and thought she'd share it with me. And I had noticed it sitting on my shelf the other day. And since I was just playing around and really wasn't sure what that Remember to Breathe really was going to do for me, I was kind of like, that could be fun. And really, this whole page is going to end up being just like what comes easy, what comes natural when I just take those deep breaths, when I remember to be in myself and not for the camera and not for what other people might think of me, just what feels right to me. And that's what Remember to Breathe means to me, is like, take those breaths, be yourself. So that's what I was going with. Now there's something that I've got, as you saw, I took that Chalky Gesso stuff and just made some blocky squares around on the page, and then I put a little bit of Stabilo all around the bottom and right sides of those, at least the ones that were showing. Now, I always like to activate a Stabilo all because it is water soluble, but instead of using water this time, I decided, what would happen if I used coffee to activate it? This was a thought I had, I think, the other day, and while I was working on this, I thought, let's go for it. Let's see what happens. So that's exactly what I did, and I'm using a flat brush, which seems really weird for me, but I think it was because of those straight edges that are on those blocks. I think that's all it was. So I smeared that coffee around in a couple different spots, kind of going over different things, splattered it as well, because, that helps me feel like everything's a little more integrated. Smoothed a few things out, and then I set to drying this. So once it was dry, I was like, okay, I want some rusty fabric in this. So I pulled out, this is rust dyed, but it also has some wax on it. I think I did that during a class from Amy Bishop, the Magpie Journal workshop class from Amy. I did that, adding the wax and everything. And I also pulled out this bit of embroidery floss because that peachy pink color kind of matches some of the butterflies or moths or whatever those are on that page. So I'm going to separate this down into, of course, embroidery floss comes in 6 strands, so I'm separating it in half, so 3 strands. I didn't think I needed a full 6 strands. I do want this peachy pink color to show, but I don't need it to be like a statement-y thing. So I separated it down and put a knot in the end and put it on my needle. And now I'm going to make a bit of a ruffle there. And I could have totally done this on my sewing machine, but I mean, then I'd have to change out the thread and the bobbin and all of that on my sewing machine. And I decided it would be nice to just hand stitch this. So it was a bit fiddly, but at the same time, it's something about kind of just the slow stitching of it is again that remember to breathe, that take your time and do what feels right for you, for your heart, for your, kind of a meditative thing. So yeah, that's where I was going with this, that whole idea of remember to breathe. Now I have sped this up quite a bit, and we're going to get to a certain point. I'm just going to skip ahead because y'all can see kind of, I'm making a ruffle. I'm coming up, I'd say, and I was trying to keep some of that first line of the green boxes showing, so I was having to scooch my fabric over a little, but I'm making a little like pleat and then sewing over it, making sure I make a stitch over it. So making a pleat and then going back over it and then making a pleat and going back over it. So that's what I did until I got to a certain point where I realized that unless I tore down some more of my fabric, I wasn't going to have enough for the whole page. So I end up just stitching the rest of it straight. So it's ruffled at the top and then straight at the bottom because, well, why not? I didn't want to tear more down. I didn't want it to be inconsistent. I felt like this was taking enough time. So yeah, and I'm gonna stitch down the rest of this. So, again, we're gonna skip ahead. I think, oh no, we're gonna speed up. That's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna let you see me do it. And it really is just a running stitch. If I was just doing the fabric, of course, I would have done more than one stitch at a time. But no, this was fine. And I just made sure I stayed along the edge. I think that was the hardest part, was not being able to see the edge. I did get a little knot there that I couldn't pull out. And I was like, you know what? Whatever. I've already done the page behind it and I know I've covered it up. So it's all good. So there was my last stitch, and I'm going to just tie this off pretty simply on that back page and then start to think about what else this page needs. And it's not really much more that it's going to need. I'm trying to remember what all. Well, there I do get a little fiddly with it. And it's funny, you can see those two pages ended up kind of matching. So I needed a bit of something dark on here. Now, granted, that Stabilo all is in there, but we did wash it out just a little bit with the coffee. So I'm coming back in with, this is an R2 pen from the Dollar Tree. It's one of those inks that while it is still kind of wet, you can hit it with a wet paintbrush and it will get all kinds of bleedy and yummy. And I love, love, love that. I do this with stamps too, that I'll stamp things and kind of bleed it out, and it's just one of those things I adore. I like that bleedy goodness. I think with watercolors it's fun too. I don't know, just that whole merging of colors and all of that. So I did some scribbles, am activating, and I'm not activating all of the parts of the lines that I'm drawing, only little parts of it. Now, y'all, I don't know if you can hear my elderly cat screaming in the background. She is fine. I promise you, she is just whiny. She wants more of the wet cat food, and she's already had it today, so she's not getting any. And so she's just being whiny, as she is wont to do. So I've scribbled some more, kind of getting that black all over, making it feel just, oh, y'all, yummy and grungy and awesome. And I've put my sentiment back down, trying to decide what it needs, if I'm ready for it to go down. And as you can see, I am. So I just grabbed my Oohoo glue stick, because again, this is just copy paper, so it's gonna stick just fine down with this glue stick. If you feel like you need something more, I would think maybe that matte gel or that fluid matte medium would be fine. I didn't want any overkill with the stronger glue. But then I did feel like I needed a touch of brightness on here. So since I knew I needed that, I decided to come in all the letters that have like a loop in them, like an E or that R or an O, and put a dot in that open loop. So, and then I'm going to continue those dots around on the page. And this brings in a little bit of brightness that this needs without being a bit of overkill. So I'm just like little sprinkles of light on here. And once I get those done, I'm going to dry it off camera, but it's fine. And I'm using this is a Sharpie water-based paint pen. So that is it for this page for my Finding the Word series, in which I am inspired by pulling out a sentiment and working with it. I don't know if you've tried this or what you think of this, and if you have any questions for me, ask away. I appreciate that you've come by and watched this, and I will see y'all later. Bye.